familiar, you're familiar. So if you don't know by now, then you should probably get familiar. You're familiar. Get familiar, you're familiar. So if you don't know by now, then you should probably get familiar.
Hey all, how are you? Thanks
Hi,
for
how are you?
joining. Hi Ron, hi George, and hi audience. It's 2:00 on a Monday, and we are joined today. I'm excited for this guest. I'm excited for this guest because, in my opinion, he's going to talk to us about how America is going to recover post-pandemic. His name is Ron Lauria, and he is a longtime Staten Islander and a worker for, and a representative for Local 28 Sheet Metal Union, and he's been in this sheet metal workers union for a very long time. He's speaking to us as a private citizen, but he's going to give us our perspective on why unions are so important to America and to the recovery of America and to business. Ron has been around. If anybody's been on Facebook, Ron or read the newspapers, Ron is very active in local politics, and we're coming to you from Staten Island, New York, which is part of New York City for those of you that are from the greater world area. And Ron has been really active in not only politics, but issues that are important to New York, and more importantly, issues that are important to workers. And while the government is shut down and businesses shut down, and everybody is talking about going back to work and how to do it safely, we thought it would be a great idea to have Ron on the show to talk about issues facing employees, especially employees in the construction trade and manufacturing and nurses and so many other organized labor. So without further ado, I am happy to say hello to Ron Lauria. Ron, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you, George. Thank you, Letitia, for having me. I think things like this are great. I think it's a public service, and I appreciate it.
It's nice, nice to see human beings that are different too, and missing that.
I agree.
So, Ron,
as Letitia mentioned, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
As
I know
Letitia
there's a
mentioned,
little.
I'm a member of Local 28 Sheet Metal Workers for 26 years. I do not officially represent Local 28 in that capacity or politically or otherwise, but I'm speaking on behalf of the labor movement and in particular the construction unions as a private citizen. I've been involved in union politics, as Letitia mentioned, and public politics and land use issues and other things on Staten Island. There is a stigma attached to unions. You know, people think everything is bloated, overpriced, lazy workers. Just to give you a little background, in particular on the building trades unions of New York City, we have about 100,000 members, and we are competitive against each other. So it's very capitalist in nature in that. We're not just a group of people who get assigned to a job site, and when it's done, it's done. There is a very competitive nature in the construction industry, and each worker sort of works individually to promote himself to be the biggest and the best trained worker for that company. Also, the construction unions have well over 1,000 affiliated companies that are all categorized as small business. And 70% of America is employed by small business. These are men and women who went through the apprenticeship programs like I did and put their houses up and got together with a few other members and opened up an electrical company, a sheet metal company, a carpenter company. And through the opening of those companies and that entrepreneurial spirit, we have 100,000 members. We train very hard. We train underneath people with years and years of experience. We get classroom time on top of that. In the past approximately 4 years, there's been about 60 fatalities on New York City construction sites. Over 90% of them have been on non-union sites. That's a tragic number, and it is because of the lack of training. We also invest in the market through our annuities, our 401ks, our pension plans. We invest heavily in the market to the tune of tens of billions a year. So you have more of that capitalist nature regarding that. I also think something that very few people know. The building trades take part in the Helmets to Hard Hats program. Tens of thousands of veterans have been brought into our apprenticeship programs and now have a middle class career in a professional industry where they can buy a home and have a family. Veterans, it's very sad, it's very unfortunate. They suffer a much higher rate of unemployment than the general public in America. And as sad as that is, I have something very tragic to tell you. They suffer up to 8 times the rate of suicide.
Yeah.
When you become a member of a union, you have better medical coverage and resources, unfortunately, than the VA has to offer.
Yeah,
You're
I
part
think
of
Scott
what we
Lebedo,
refer to as,
I'm sorry, just to go to your point, Scott Lebedo recently let us all know that 22 veterans a day commit suicide. I mean, 22 a
yes,
day. Yeah, it's crazy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
yes. No, that's an it's a tragic number. And to me, I have a brother who's a veteran, and and he has PTSD, and that's what leads to other issues, which in turn does lead to suicide. Having better medical coverage, being part of what we refer to as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, we have networks within the unions where we have meetings, groups of veterans. We have the Emerald Society and things like that. We have dinners where we put together scholarship funds so members' children and grandchildren can go to college. So we're involved in the community after September 11th, after Hurricane Sandy. The building trades were all over Staten Island. They were up and down Highland Boulevard helping people with clothes, water, putting their homes back together, donating money. And so that's just a quick background. With the Helmets to Hard Hats program, we invest in the market. We are competitive. And it sort of bothers me when the word socialism gets injected into unionism, because we are very much a part of the small business community, the consumer industry. We're very involved in the, like I mentioned, in the community, investing in the market. So we don't have that socialist type of thing that people refer to. That's just part of the stigma.
Yeah,
And I
and
think
there's a big
I was
stigma.
safe. I'm sorry.
There's a
Yeah,
huge stigma
that's what
attached
it
to
is.
unions, and I think it's more about the fact that people don't understand them, and they don't understand what a union is there to do. I think look, my grandfather,
Yes.
both my grandfathers were longshoremen. So they were very active in their unions, and they were very active in keeping at the time it was mostly men on the docks, protected. And because at the time, in the
Yes.
60s, there were some dangerous situations occurring on the docks in New York and all around the country. As a matter of fact, my husband's uncle was actually killed unloading a boat on the dock. He actually got killed by something dropped by a crane. And later on, my father was in construction, and he was in Florida, which is a right to work state. And he was telling me stories that some of these concrete slabs that they used to build, that one day it toppled over and killed a man on the job. And instead of sending everybody home and reassessing, they just moved everything out of the way and continued to work. So unions have played an active role in keeping people safe. And as a Republican, which I am, people could always question me on, well, how is it you support unions? And my answer has always been, well, first of all, I come from a union family. Second off, in my experience, unions for safer work sites, which saves time on the job site and money for on the job. And at the end of the day, if we're in a capitalist nation, isn't that what we're seeking? We're seeking an efficient, safe workplace at the best cost possible. Sorry, George.
And a smaller government, right? So we don't, if the unions step away, the government's going to have to step in, right? That's just the way it is. That's what they're trying to do now. As a Republican, I can say clearly I don't want more government involvement. I'd rather leave it to the hands of the people.
That's a good point, George, because the truth is that yeah, go ahead, Ron.
On Staten Island in particular, we have the highest percentage of union members of all the 5 boroughs. We have the highest rate of home ownership. We are the middle class community, and still you get that anti-union sentiment to some degree. And a lot of Republicans are actually endorsed by unions, while Democrats usually are more together, on the same boat when it comes to issues and things. But I mean, I'll tell you what. You show me a Republican candidate in New York City who has not taken money from a union.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure just about everyone has at one point or another.
Well,
And
we want
back to
to.
the safety issue, it really, when someone dies on a New York City construction site, it ends up costing the taxpayers millions of dollars. The work gets shut down, people get sent home. There has to be investigations, there's lawsuits, there's a lot of litigation, and that comes up into the tens of millions of dollars that it costs to the taxpayer. Mayor de Blasio a few years ago, and unfortunately the city council passed a bill, the Construction Safety Bill 1447C. The original version, 1447A, which was popular in the city council when it was first introduced, promoted building trades, apprenticeship programs, which I'll go into, on larger, a certain size and certain dynamic of construction sites in New York City. And it was due to this tragic rate of fatalities on construction sites. That bill got watered down to 1447C, which means pretty much non-union workers who don't go through an extensive educational process, that is our apprenticeship program, take online courses or 30 or 40 hours of classroom time. And that seems to, in the government's eyes, or at least the mayor's eyes, that makes them equal to my 4-year apprenticeship with hundreds of hours of classroom time, on-site training, OSHA credentials, etc. So there really is no comparison. And you're right, a safer job site, it's leaner, it gets done quicker, it's more efficient, it's more cost effective. And you have a workforce that is made up of a certain percentage of veterans by policy. Invest in the market. Again, I bring things like that up because people don't realize the benefit of having a well-trained workforce in New York City, especially with the complexities of construction that we have here. The
Yeah.
greatest city in the world should be built with the greatest, best trained workforce available, and that is the building trades of New York City.
So let's talk a little bit about that, okay? And when I was chair of community board one, I took the unprecedented move of creating the first labor committee in all of New York City for the community board. And I did that because
Yes.
we had some great projects coming up on the waterfront, right? At the time, it was Irby, it was the New York Wheel, it was Empire Outlets, Lighthouse Point. And in my opinion, if we were going to get those projects in the ground and completed in a safe and timely and cost-effective fashion, we had to have labor that was trained to do the job, right? And we asked that we have apprenticeship programs, and that we, wherever possible, were able to have the men and women that lived on Staten Island and belonged to labor and the construction to be a part of it. We also asked for minority and woman-owned businesses, on Staten Island to be a part of that. And, if there were people or small businesses that were not union, that a deal be made with those businesses to work together on the job site with the union. And I have to tell you something. I'm proud of that, and that committee still lives. And as a matter of fact, the current chairman of Community Board 1 in Staten Island is a member of Local 3. And so I'm really proud of that because we set a precedent, and I don't know that any other community board has, adopted that. But the reason I bring it up is because going forward, right? We just heard the class of 2020 that they're graduating, and in the days before there was a big a commencement address, and I think that it was on Fox, it was on a couple of news channels, that all these people got together to address class of 2020. And a couple of days before that, we heard that California was talking about maybe not even having college sessions in fall. So the young people who graduated in 2020 are faced with a lot of choices in front of them, right? Because the post-COVID world is different. And I think it would be really important for you, Ron, to take this opportunity now, whether they're watching or not, maybe they'll watch later on, to talk to young people about the opportunities in the apprenticeship programs that unions offer, so that they have another alternative, because their mindset might have been college, 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 and just college. But the new world is likely going to be where construction industry, which I just want to brag for a second, and stop me when you've had enough. But the construction industry in New York was number fourth in the nation in 2018 for as an economic driver, and it was actually construction was number three in New York City as an economic driver. What came before that was retail and consulting. Now we know that those two industries, retail especially, is going to move to online, and consulting will likely be mostly online, which means that New York will probably, their first economic driver in 2020 will probably be construction. So the jobs will likely be there for construction if the state and the city work together with the union. So Ronnie, why don't you tell people how they could get involved in apprenticeship programs, and what the unions do for young people?
But there's about 15 major unions within the building trades of New York City. It's every so often they'll publicly announce that they're going to take applications. You can go online and find out. It's easy enough to Google. We participate in jobs fairs throughout the city in conjunction with members of the city council and community boards, the principals of high schools, because it does offer their students a future. The apprenticeship programs we're part of a New York State accredited apprenticeship program, which is separate from what we call a rogue union, that they come up with these different programs and they'll graduate 1 or 2 people a year. There's no comparison to what we do as far as our educational system within the trades. So there definitely is a future in construction in Manhattan. But you're right, in the post-COVID world, we don't know what retail space is going to look like. We don't know how many people are going to reoccupy offices. But there's still a tremendous amount of residential, high-rise construction, new school construction, the MTA, tunnels. We have a lot of infrastructure work going on. So I don't see a slowdown anytime in the very near future, but it does go in peaks and valleys. And it really does depend on whether New York City and New York State hold up to their obligations to the people of New York City to continue developing. One of the first things the mayor did a few months ago was he pulled back funding from projects that were in the design phase. In other words, they're just being drawn up. So he pulled funding away. What that tells me, being in my industry for so long, is that a few years down the road, those are projects that are not going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's people that are going to be out of work. So, the construction industry has a ripple effect. It keeps other people employed. When you earn a decent living, you spend more money, you become more of our consumer-driven economy. But when the mayor and possibly the governor do hold back funding, and listen, the budget is being reviewed right now for New York City. It's got to be done by, I think, June 1st. If they hold back on projects like Sunnyside Yards or other projects that are crucial to the growing city from a business and residents point of view, that's going to be a disservice to the people. Because to get moving after we get the economy going again, it's going to take people working, paying taxes, generating revenue for the city, state, and federal coffers. It's crazy to think that we can continue on this road, what we're doing, which is a lot what those rallies were about yesterday. And you have one side that really wants to open up business and get going. And I don't even call it restarting the economy. I call it reigniting the economy, because you really want to get that spark going, get people out there back to work and spending. And the other side is very cautious, sometimes too cautious. The way I look at it, and you two are very familiar with business, what business would reopen and not do so safely? Why would they even risk the liabilities? Why would they risk being shut down? Why would they risk the penalties and fines from New York City? These people are family people, like the thousands of construction companies in the city, restaurant owners, bagel store, delis, bar owners, and so on, that we know so many of personally. They put their houses up. They open businesses. They're going to protect it. They're there to make money. They're not there to jeopardize it and cut corners.
Right.
They're there. So if they're there to make money, how foolish would it be to think that they would risk it by not following the protocols set forth by government? I know the
Yeah.
construction industry is way ahead of the curve with this. The building and construction trades have met with the Real Estate Board of New York and other people to set standards for construction sites. And I read it. It's good. And we're going to have safe operating conditions when the construction industry comes back full force.
Yeah, it seems
Small businesses, for the reasons. I'm sorry?
I was going to say, it seems to me like they don't trust us to be responsible. And I blame the media for some of that, because they're going to put the one nutball that's licking doorknobs on the news. But the reality is we need to be trusted that we can do this safely. I don't want my grandmother to die. I don't want your grandmother to die. We're going to take those precautions, and, I don't want to get sued. So I think, you hit a good point there.
Exactly.
It scares me a little bit that the government has that little
That's
amount
what
of trust in us.
Go ahead, Ron.
Yes. I find that the one extreme on the other is to open up immediately, and obviously the one extreme on the other is to hold back as long as possible, and they're all for these multi-trillion-dollar stimulus, which are necessary to a degree, but not perpetual or sustainable. That's just common sense. On the one hand, with the opening everything up very quickly, the largest economy in the world, the largest economy centralized in New York City in the United States, which is the largest economy in the world, is not a light switch. You can't turn it on and have hundreds of thousands, possibly 1 million or more people getting onto mass transit, which I think is a very big issue.
Yeah, huge.
Packed subway cars, that's a major issue. That is right up there with schools and putting 32 kids in the classroom.
That's right.
That has to be addressed, and that's not flicking a light switch either. So things are going to have to be addressed, and after everything this city and this country has been through in the past few months, it's really just a matter of weeks of setting things in order, getting things in order and organized to do it the safest way possible. Yes, it's government. It may take a little longer, but I do have confidence it's going to go a little quicker than people think. And I think things will get back to normal and people will sort of crawl out of this. And small business is the driving engine. It's not so much finance, the market, a lot of people working from home. It's the small business that employs the people. It's the small business that are the homeowners in communities like Staten Island. And so we do have to get back to work, but we have to find that middle ground where we know every industry, whether it be construction, whether it be finance, whether it be retail or restaurants, that we have the protocol and parameters set to follow, and which, like we discussed and agree on, that it's in their interest to follow. I do put confidence in the business community of this city and country to do what is right. I fear lackings with opening the schools and mass transportation. That's going to be difficult issues to overcome, but it doesn't mean we hold back. It doesn't mean we don't move forward. Sometimes one step at a time, sometimes we'll take leaps. But the American spirit historically has proven that we will prevail and we will do it. And through every tragic episode, war, depression in this country, we've always come out better. I have a lot of confidence
that's a fact. We always
in
come
the
out.
people of this country, the people of this city, to do just that. Yeah, I'm confident we will. And I think government might be holding us back, but we sort of have to meet in the middle. Do it right, but for damn sure, do it.
So, Ron, I want to stop you for a minute because we've been remiss in doing this in the past. We've had some viewers that have been on with us that we want to acknowledge. Lucille Chavone has joined us. Connie Celia Reginella Baron has joined us. Bonnie Standard. Cookie Balage has joined us. And my mom, Josephine Nastasi, who hasn't yet missed a show, has joined us today. So hello to everybody. My mom, Ronnie, wants to ask you or to ask the public, how do business owners feel about their employees joining a union? I think that, Ron, you and I spoke a little bit about at the top, before we came on air, about some business owners when they hear that their employees are organizing, that they become very worried or concerned that somehow or another it's going to cost them more money or too much money, or it's just going to be a detriment to them. And I think that when you talked about the fact that unions are, competitive, and also small business owners themselves, uh, that should have answered the question. But maybe why don't you tell? What would you say, to a business owner who was in the construction trades, and they learned that somebody was trying to organize their shop?
Okay. When it comes to a business being organized, or people trying to, workers trying to organize within that business, it's very industry sensitive. If it's a restaurant, it's one totally different set of rules and circumstances. In the construction industry, in particular, especially in New York City, we provide a labor pool. A company in my union who normally employs 10 people can take a job, get in touch with the union, go through the hiring hall, and get 30 or 40 qualified, trained people in a day or two, so he can man that job. So these companies, these small companies, can bid on more work. And then the more companies that bid, the more competition you have, which drives the price down, but you still have the best labor force on site regardless. With other industries, manufacturing, it really should be unionized because it has a large a labor pool. It involves working shift work. There's dangers involved. And like I mentioned before, it's like a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. If people make a decent living, that is part of the revolving economy. So in manufacturing, say they have 100 people working and making whatever, to have them not unionized, you really, it's not as dependable of a workforce. They're not going to have health coverage. You don't know what's going to happen if they get sick. A manufacturer might want to increase the volume of what he's doing or expand. He'll have that union to go to for that certified and trained workforce, that labor pool. Again, it's very industry sensitive. Like you really don't see it. Honestly, how many restaurants do you know that are unionized, or like bagel stores or something like that? So it really doesn't affect mom and pop, family owned businesses that we're all familiar with on Staten Island. But the larger the industry, the more need there is for a trained workforce. And you have a lot of non-union companies, whether it be construction or not. And Diane Savino has been really big on this, on a wage theft, paying off the books, taking kickbacks from workers on top of unsafe conditions.
Yeah.
And that, when workers don't pay, think about this. X amount of workers are not paying city, state, and federal tax, and we all know there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
That we have to make up for that in the budget. The taxpayers make up. If the New York City budget, for example, is $90 billion, and X amount of people are not contributing X amount of money, that money's got to come from someplace. That's going to come from me and Letitia and George and our families who work and pay our taxes.
Yep.
So those companies are reaping the rewards, right? They're exploiting a workforce. It's tax evasion, which, let's face it, we all know somebody pretty well who went to jail for that.
Yeah,
but
sure.
It runs rampant in certain industries where it should not be.
So, Ron,
that was not a shot at him, by the way.
That
was not a shot at him. We're talking a small restaurant and doing something minimal. That was not a shot at him whatsoever. That was to say that in larger scale industries like manufacturing and construction, where working off the books and tax evasion and wage theft is more prevalent, that's where a large amount of revenue is not going in to the government. And like I mentioned before, those are the industries where people get hurt.
Yeah. So,
and
Ronnie,
when they don't make
worse
enough
than
money,
that,
how do they subsidize it?
Worse than that, I think that now, right, to your point about people paying people off the books, we know that it happens in the restaurant industry, and the second culprit is the construction industry. Now, let's just think about what's occurring right now for the moment. And I've been running around saying this over and over and over again. If you were a contractor and you had your guys and gals working off the books right now, those men and women cannot get unemployment. They're not eligible for unemployment. But even worse, or not even worse, is now that person, that business that decided that was the way to go by skirting taxes, that person doesn't have records of employment to get PPP loans. So they are like last in the program to be able to get anything. And unemployment is really the state unemployment, for anybody that's self-employed will tell you that they've tried to apply for it, and unemployment is making it almost impossible for them to get any kinds of loans or assistance. So in essence, what I'm trying to say is, for all those years that those people were stealing from everyone, because that's what they were doing, right? Stealing from everyone.
Yes.
Now it's come back to bite them in the ass, and in the worst possible time, ever. And I doubt that they have had enough savings in their accounts to be able to survive for the next couple of months. So anyway, I just thought, I guess karma's a bitch. And there you go.
Right.
So, and for those of you who recognize that we have a little bit of a delay, Ronnie is a little bit delayed. So if it looks like we're talking over each other, it's not because we're trying to be rude. He's a little delayed. But Ronnie, I want to just go back for a minute. And George, do you have that clip ready?
Yeah, I can play it.
Okay. So over Friday, there was a group that were protesting in Albany, and they wanted to go back to work. And then I was part of a group on Saturday that protested in Staten Island. There was a second group, CW, the local, I think it's 1102. It was communication workers. At any rate, the governor responded to a reporter's question at Friday's press conference, or Saturday's press conference. The reporter asked about businesses that wanted to go back to work, and the governor said this. George has the clip, so if George will play it, everybody could see what the governor said.
I get the economic hardship. Everybody gets it. Everybody feels it. You want to go to work? Go take a job as an essential worker.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So what the governor was saying there is, a small business who were demonstrating frustration that they couldn't go back to work. The governor said, in his very sometimes condescending tone, "Oh, go take a job as an essential worker." The reason I wanted people to see that clip is because, if we're going to recover our economy, we have to face some facts, right? Some of the facts are that we were $8 billion in the hole before COVID hit. Okay, that's fact one. Fact two is the construction industry. We talked about it already. Was number three as an economic driver in New York City, and fourth nationwide for New York's construction industry. Was number four nationwide in employing people. Just in New York City alone, 500,000 people were employed at an average salary of $80,000 a year. And I don't care where you live, $80,000 is a pretty good number for employment. So in New York, just the southern region, the New York City region, $32 billion was generated by the construction industry in 2018. Okay, that's not counting 19. This was don't believe me, folks. Look it up. Thomas DiNapoli, our comptroller, released the report. You can find it online. And so for me, I would have liked to see the governor say something like, you know what? Here's our plan. Our plan is this. We're going to phase in, getting back to work. The people that are trained to work and who have to work safe, like, the construction industry, who has to wear PPE and has to have OSHA training. And we all know that the trades don't work on top of each other, right? Electricians don't work in the same space as plumbers. Glazers don't work in the same place as electricians. They keep each other safe. They keep the work site safe. They keep each other safe. Why in the hell wouldn't the governor, instead of being so flippant and being so, just nasty like he was. So why wouldn't he say, look, we have a plan and here's our plan? Instead, we have these interesting mile markers, if you will, milestones. If you're working on a 20-story affordable housing job in Manhattan, you're allowed to work. But if you are working on a commercial center in Manhattan, you're not allowed to work. If you're working on a house that you started a bathroom and the poor family has been peeing in a bucket for the last freaking 9 weeks, you can't install the bathroom. If you're mowing a lawn, you can mow the lawn, but you can't install the new lawn and the new garden that you put together for your newly remodeled house. So, Ronnie, give me your take on this.
I'm glad you brought this up. It's politicians that make the decisions, whether it be Washington, Albany, or City Hall. But it's we, the people, the workers. We're the ones that make the sacrifice. We're the ones that go out there every day. We're the ones who do the work. We're the ones who comply with the rules. It's easy. They all work hard. Some are better than others, but we're the ones that have to walk the walk. Okay? And when it comes to the different decisions with the construction industry, one of the mayor's biggest campaign promises or dreams when he first got elected was well over 100,000 units of affordable housing. When there's a pandemic drowning our city, he says it's okay for workers to take mass transportation and work in that industry, which is statistically the most inherently dangerous business in this city right now.
Yeah.
But it's okay to do the affordable housing. There are new schools. I was scheduled to work in a new school on Staten Island. There are new schools where they stop construction, where we desperately need, now more than ever, we need more school seats. So there's less kids in a classroom for obvious reasons. They stopped that, or much of that, or all of that, but affordable housing continues. I find that, I'll be polite and say it's ironic, but I think there's a lot more behind it and it's politically motivated. And it's wrong. It's wrong on so many levels. And you get like I'll single the mayor out. I'm speaking as a private citizen. He's very good at taking credit for things that even remotely go right in his arena.
You mean
But
those
very
two
quick to
things?
point the
Those
finger.
two things?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the right stuff. I don't have it.
Sorry, Ron.
But he's very quick to point the fingers.
Yeah.
When he ran for office, he was very pro-union. It was the rah-rah worker of the world speech and everything. And then he refused to pass legislation that not only would promote the union, safe working, professional agenda, it would have statistically saved lives. Now, they could say maybe not. You can't prove that. Statistically, yeah, I can prove it. Because well over 90% of the fatalities are on non-union sites.
That's right.
If 20, 30, or 40% more of the construction market share was union, statistically, there would be people, fathers. Coincidentally, it was all men that died, of that approximately 6 in the past 4 years. One of them was an Air Force veteran. He died because, it's hard to explain, it's a little piece of linkage on a harness that cost a couple of dollars. He died because of that. He fell to his death. He fought 2 tours overseas in the Air Force. There are people with children. These kids are now orphans. Now, when those people work for companies like that and they die, their families don't have a lot of options. Now you have more families on public assistance. When workers don't get paid a fair wage, like we've seen with other large corporations, they subsidize their income with public assistance. So it all sort of ties into each other. And I know I went a little off because you were talking about the governor and the mayor.
No, that's all right.
It really does tie into each other. But the
No.
bottom line is you're right.
It all ties together.
But the one thing that I didn't bring
Yes.
up, and because I thought it was, people would know it, but I think I should make it clear, is those affordable housing jobs, the majority of them, am I wrong in stating that the mayor said, sorry, it can't be union because it's affordable housing and there's not enough, break even money. And so it's instead, oh God, I can't remember what they call the wage, prevailing wage.
Prevailing wage.
Prevailing wage.
Yeah.
So the one the entities that are allowed to work right now, the people working on the entities right now, are the non-union jobs. I mean, look, and I don't say that they shouldn't be working, but I know that the mayor has kicked you guys in the head over and over and over again, and this is just one of them, in my opinion, when he says we can't do an affordable housing job union because it's going to cost too much money. What that does is it drives the perception that unions add money to the jobs instead of unions saving money to the jobs. And I know a little bit about that perception because when I was in the Battery Park City Authority, we created the first green buildings ever in New York. And the first thing that every developer said when we said you have to build green was, oh, it's going to cost too much money. You're adding all this, on the price. We can't do it. We can't do it. And so we demonstrated why it would save them money in the long run, just in the, maybe the materials, because they weren't readily available at the time, were maybe at a premium cost, but the maintenance of the building over time was going to pay back that cost. And the health of the people living in the building was so paramount and important to them that they were willing to pay a premium in rent to have their kids living in a green and healthier environment. And so the Battery Park City Authority became the cutting edge on that. And guess who was by our sides while we were doing it? The unions, because interestingly enough, for photovoltaics, it would normally be the job for the Glaciers Union, but because you had to hook up, for the electricity, it was also a cross trades, and they worked with us on that to make sure that we were able to build that building, and the Solaire was the first one. At any rate, so that just furthers your point that unions are competitive, and also like small business owners, they understand what the economy looks like. So I just wanted to bring that up.
If you guys don't mind, I'd like to transition into something. I want to show you a clip from a guy called Mike Rowe, the guy who used to host Dirty Jobs. One of the things that, and I'm just talking about trades, and I know we're going off on another topic here, but do you need to go to college, and what's the better job for the future of America? I want to show you guys this clip because I find this guy fascinating, and I hold the same position as him. Let me bring him up on screen a second, then I'd like to get your opinion on what he said.
We're getting really fancy here. Wait,
maybe I should turn the volume on.
That'll work.
Education, in my view, is not anything that you can get by without, but the kind of education. I get a lot of heat because I take the position about education that a lot of people misinterpret to mean don't go to college. And I would never say don't go to college unless you can't afford it, or if you're not sure why you're going. There's been a push in this country for the last 40 years or so, this suggestion that a 4-year degree is the best path for the most people. I don't believe that's true. On my last gig, I met a lot of people who didn't go to college, who were in fact very smart and very driven and very talented and who prospered. But they were also educated, just not in a traditional way. So I think what's really important today is to make sure that you talk about the value of a skilled trade in the same way that you talk about the value of academic success. Here's the platitude. If you don't get educated, you're through. That's very, very different than saying if you don't get a 4-year degree, you have no hope. And that's basically what we've been saying for a long time.
Yeah, I find with that statement powerful. I think it's part of our recovery for this country. And we don't give enough credit to the tradespeople and the trade workers. We hold up office workers and we say, oh, he got that job at the construction site. There needs to be a marketing change here somewhere. Somebody needs to make this the new sexy, And I think, we can start it here today with us three. What do you think? Making trades the new sexy, making trades something that you don't look, years ago people looked down on. I think more and more now they're not, but I'd love to hear your opinion on that, Ron. Making trades something that, if you don't go to college, that doesn't matter. You're still going to get an education. and talk about maybe about the education in the trade.
You
Go ahead, Ron.
you broke up a little bit, but I'm going to answer it best I can from what I got. So correct me if I'm off course here.
Sure.
You're talking about the apprenticeship programs and the level of education.
Yeah, like trade schools and
Well,
how they should be they should be as
Well,
if
the trade school is one thing.
the delay's killing me. Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry, Ron.
A trade school is
so Ronnie, what
again.
I
There
think
was a
that
little
what
bit
we're
of a
trying to do
technical.
here is to have your commentary on the future of America. You know, that battle. Should you only go to college, or can you choose a profession in the trades
Oh,
and get and have a
okay.
good future? And we were planning to talk about that anyway, because especially now, since I think people are concerned about much of our goods being made in China, and they don't want that anymore,
Yes.
right? So this graduating class of not only 2020 but 2021, 22, 23, we need to change the mindset of just go get your degree and go get a job in a white collar kind of business. But to say it's okay to work with your hands. Not only is it okay, but it is embraced, and you will be doing more or as much to help your country if you work with your hands as if you go and you get an education for a white collar job. So Ronnie, you take it away.
Okay, it's really up to the individual, but the opportunity for manufacturing and construction jobs, in my opinion, will grow. Like I said, it goes in peaks and valleys, but I think in a big picture point of view, that industry will grow, and you can make a good, decent living out of it. Uh, as far as the training goes, our apprenticeship programs offer classroom time. Most of our apprenticeship programs can be applied toward a degree in college. In my union and many other construction trade unions, you have mechanical draftsmen who work with computers. They work with engineers and architects, to actually build mechanical systems and other engineering geared type of work, which is not the hands-on construction aspect of it. There are people who do estimating. So there's a whole comprehensive industry that varies from trade to trade. But there are good employment opportunities. It's not too often you can get a job in this city where you can invest in a 401k, an annuity, and or a pension at the same time while earning a decent living. And make no mistake about it, you have to really know this is what you want to do. You freeze in the winter. It's very hot in the summer. It is dangerous no matter how safe you work. It's not the easiest task in the world. When I talk to guys about retiring, everyone doesn't say how many years they have left. They say how many winters they have left.
Yeah.
Because it takes a toll. It's brutal. It's dangerous. It takes years of training to do the right way. So you should get paid a fair day's pay. It is very justified, and it's what the market can bear. So there are job opportunities in conjunction with college and furthering your education. And like you mentioned, with the whole manufacturing issue with China, I think China taking a sort of bad route internationally. I think America is going to address our manufacturing process and stop all this importing and dealing with all this unemployment and people living paycheck by paycheck. We can have more gainful employment as opposed to going week by week. There's something very interesting. Again, it ties together in a way. In 2008, when they had the stimulus plan, between $600 and $1,200 was mailed out. It was to a lesser degree than this. The 90% of the people spent it on durable goods. They were buying cars, all going on vacation, things of that nature. There was a study by Columbia University and Northwestern University. People who received their stimulus check 2020, as of April 21st, most of them used it to pay their mortgage, rent, and buy food. So it shows you a different dynamic of where our economy is. It really is based on gainful employment and quality of life. And unions do contribute to those areas. So I think it is critical to have that fairly paid workforce. I think it is very important that people make a decision in high school, college, to go into to look into different areas. There's a whole world out there, and construction, manufacturing is part of it. It's more in depth than what you see at face value.
If I could ask a follow up, to that, from today, I decide I want to be an electrician. I know we didn't pre-do this question, so I don't. If you don't have the answer, it's okay. How much am I looking at to go from apprentice to journeyman in my career versus college? And I guess the point I'm trying to make with that is financially, I think you're fiscally smarter if you don't burn that $300,000 or $400,000 on college, because in the trades industry, you get to earn while you learn. Is that right? If I'm off base, shoot me down. I'm not.
Yes. Yes. Every union is different. When you come into the construction trades, you go through an apprenticeship. You start off, it depends. It depends on the union. Approximately 25, 28%, something like that, of the full scale. And you get a raise either every year or every 6 months. That's basically, like I said, every union is different. But if you start off as a police officer, a fireman, a school teacher, or even in finance, you're starting off at some level. Very, very few people walk out of Harvard into that $250,000 a year job, and God bless them. More power to them. But in the real world, everyone starts out of high school or college at a certain level, and you work your way up. In any industry, you have to work hard and prove yourself to earn that better pay, to get that promotion. So it's pretty much the same in this industry, in the construction industry.
So
if I could go back, since we're discussing the
sure.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, in my experience,
Okay, well,
the delay. Okay, in my experience, I have seen people who have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of college debt, because they decided, to go to school to be, I don't know, for technology or for whatever else, and now be unemployed or come out of college without a job to go to, and so they wound up being a waitress or a bartender or a barista. While some of the young people who took the course of becoming an apprentice in a union, who might have started at maybe 30,000, which again, in New York it's low, but still for entering in and learning, about a trade, not so bad. Who within 5 years were making $80,000 and $90,000 more with overtime, and that person, the other person who went to college, still doesn't have a job that is paying enough to pay the bills. And the other thing I want to say, with respect to unions and trades, I find it amazing that when de Blasio decided to create these trade high schools, that the majority of those trade high schools were for careers in like graphic design or set creation for theater or technology. But we in New York City depend on unions and people who work with their hands or do physical and manual labor to run our city. Why didn't we have schools that would train people, high schools that would train young people how to drive a bus or, drive a train or, be a janitor in a school or a city building, or, there's so many services, social workers. So many services. Oh, well, social, I get workers is more of a white collar, but we have so many blue collar services in New York City that we are dependent upon as a city. Why weren't we telling young people, hey, you can learn about these, and by virtue of providing them the opportunity to see or learn about those jobs, taking away any negative stigma that might be attached to working with your hands? I don't know about you, but when I ask young parents what they hope their child's going to be when they grow up, very few of them say, I hope my child studies janitorial services and becomes
a welder.
okay? But if you
Yeah.
talk to any school custodian, you know that some of those custodians are drawing down six-figure salaries. Most of them are drawing down six-figure
Yeah.
salaries. So what the hell is the matter with the parents that they don't recognize that a good hard day's work, and yes, maybe a profession is a little bit dangerous, but you know what? Everything can be dangerous. Walking out your door can be dangerous. Hey, there was a virus that was going around that's killing hundreds of thousands of people in America that nobody saw coming and nobody could do anything about. That's dangerous. So why wouldn't you as a parent say, let me give my kid a shot? And in the next breath, and Ronnie, I'll let you jump in a second. In the next breath is, then I run across a bunch of parents that have kids that go, try and get to be a city worker. Get in the union. Get in the union. Do whatever you can. Get in the
Yeah.
union. And you know what? They're right. And you as a parent, I think we as parents have an obligation to recognize our kids' college materials are not. Because not every kid is cut out for college. And as parents, for us to try and shove that kid along by saying, oh, little Johnny or Joni is not a good test taker. So your Johnny or Joni has an ADD or CFB or ABCDEFG and needs medication, and make excuses for the kid all the way through not only grade school and high school, but also through college. We are doing that kid a disservice, and we're not, being the best for as parents. We
Yeah.
need to recognize some kids are going to be better off with their hands and let them follow their dream and give them the opportunity. Open the door to blue collar work. And so, go ahead, Ronnie. I've said enough.
Okay. Never enough. There's more student debt in America than credit card debt. I'm
Crazy.
sure we all know people who get out of college and whether they have a job or not, they have $100,000, $200,000 in debt, and they haven't even earned a paycheck yet. What should be done, as you mentioned before, in high school, opportunities should be shown to students. When I was 16 or 17, no one said, there's a vast array of industries you can get into, from finance to medicine to construction. You could join the military. You could get involved. There's so many different avenues that a teenager, a high school student could look into. They're not really shown that. They take the advice of their parents. They see where their older siblings are going. Everyone in high school is going to be a millionaire one day. Just ask them. So there's that mentality without them being presented all the opportunities available. So when they do get out of high school or go to college or whatever it may be, they now have multiple choices. Maybe they'll take a city test and a union test while going to college. Leave your options open. The days of the 30 or 40 year careers are not so much valid as they were a generation or two ago. Unless you're in a union, unless you have a city job. People they work from Goldman Sachs, then they'll go to another financial firm, from one bank to another. So I would advise the Board of Ed, the mayor, the city council to put a program in place that lays out a vast array of opportunities so they could approach multiple avenues, so they have multiple choices when they get out of high school and or college. It shouldn't be singular, because if that singular choice, that effort doesn't work out, you're really stuck at that point. And then that's when you end up, and I'm not knocking it, but you end up bebeing a waitress or something like that because you just got to keep a roof over your head. Career should be something that can be developed at a younger age. And choice and opportunity is the key there, I believe.
And blue collar careers are real. They are careers, and they should not be overlooked. And so, Ronnie, we're coming up on our at our hour. So I want to ask you: is there anything else that you want to add to to the class of 2020 and beyond about looking into unions?
I'd like to bring just something quickly up if I can.
Sure.
When developers complain that they can't afford to pay prevailing wage or a union worker, then they should stop taking money from the city and state in the form of tax grants, tax abatements to the tune of billions and billions a year that they get. As of 2 years ago, Hudson Yards, a $26 or $27 billion project, was in receipt of $5.6 billion of your money, Letitia, your money, George. They get that money and then they forward us on paying prevailing wage while unions negotiate project labor agreements to make us more enticing and available to do these projects. We're very flexible. We're well trained. We invest in the market. We hire soldiers. We are the backbone of the middle class. There is a great divide between the 1% and beneath that, and the connection is the union workers. And as far as getting the market going, it's the big issue these days. You know what? Do it right, do it safely, but it has to be done. Stop setting dates. It's June 13th, it's July 1st. Don't set a date. Tell people, hey, do this and you're good to go. I
Yeah.
have a lot of confidence that small businesses, I know in my industry, they're doing it because they want. Who doesn't want to go to work? Who doesn't want to open their business? Who doesn't want to make a profit? Of course they do. And they're going to do what it takes, just like they did when they opened the business. They're going to fight. They're going to utilize that American spirit that we were all born with to some degree, and we will prevail. Government has to do their thing. Make sure things are safe. Have a lot of oversight, but don't get in the way.
Great
That's
ending,
my
Ronnie.
rant.
Great. I love your rant. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to close out, but I want to just remind you that on Friday, we're here at 2:00 with Catherine Paradiso, former commissioner for people with disabilities, and a nurse who is currently teaching at the College of Staten Island. She's going to talk to us a little bit about this coronavirus and about nurses and nursing, and also, people with disability and how they're moving forward during the pandemic. So thank you, Ron, Lauria, local 28 Steelworkers Union, George Passarello, my partner in crime, and my producer, and I'm Leticia Romero. And thanks, Mom. I saw you were watching. Bye, all.
Bye, guys.
Familiar. You're familiar.
Thank you.